day is here. Time to get this thing loaded up. Been sitting here idling for probably 10-15 minutes. Still not getting warm. I haven't even kicked on the auxiliary fan yet, but it's still pretty cool out temperature wise. Time to load up. Got all the tools packed for Dragweek. Got a big toolbox. Got to bring the important Dodge tool, the wallet, and a lot of money. This is the real like YouTube. This is like the content everybody wants, right? You're like struggling in the morning, trying to get to the track, changing an alternator, getting ready to drill holes in a $200 alternator, and the bolt doesn't want to come out. It is time for the Dragweek wrap up and the hangover from being on the road for a week, and the realization that you have to come home and clean your garage and take care of other cars that you tore apart to make Dragweek happen. So yeah, open up the door to this disaster. It's like, oh man, I forgot. Yeah, it absolutely just looks like a bomb went off in my shop. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. Cleaning up the shop and putting some stuff away, unpacking the car. But it was a great week. Met a ton of cool people. So yeah, that's what it's all about. So I'm going to do a wrap-up video of what it was like to be a first-timer on Dragweek. Some of the stuff that we kind of missed on, and some of the stuff that we would do the next time, as far as what I would do the next time. We didn't tow a trailer, and you can definitely see why some of the other people tow trailers. And it's not just for towing parts and having a bunch of spares. It's very nice and it's convenient for that. It is, especially if you're a time crunch, if you have to do it, if you have to run in the morning early. And that's kind of how, I guess I'll back up and they have different classes that run at different times. So the really super fast cars, the stuff that you're seeing will run 6, 7, 8 seconds. Those are all A-class cars. Those all run in the morning. So very beneficial for those guys to have trailers, not only for spare parts, but for unloading and prepping the car. We brought this car without any kind of a trailer. So everything we had to support this car, it went in the trunk or it went where the back seat used to be. So definitely could see some advantages if you're running a faster car. If you can tow a trailer, tow a trailer. Definitely a big advantage to that. We got to the point where we could unload or load this car in about 25 minutes. But if you're a fast car, running late, it would be nice to have a trailer so you don't have to unload your car fully, reload your car fully. Especially for like breakdowns on the side of the road, stuff like that. We had a breakdown on the side of the road in Columbus, and this is not all back roads. Some of this stuff is on expressways, and your people around you are still doing expressway speeds, and they don't get out of your way. So it's pretty dangerous. One of the guys that was in the group, he had a Mustang that went down, and he actually, there was an accident that happened behind him and ended up wiping out the front end of his Mustang and his enclosed trailer. So very dangerous. So if you have a trailer, you have faster access to your parts. In my case, we broke a alternator belt. So we were kind of, and I didn't have a spare. Who would have known? I put a new belt on. Why would you need a spare? But needed a spare. And that's the other part of just a quick tidbit about Dragweek. If you're gonna wait until your stuff is 100% done, you'll never get it done. You can't bring. You'd have to bring an entire car. You'd have to tow an entire car as a parts car. So there's stuff that's critical spares. I bought a sniper kit for this car and I didn't use it because I didn't want, especially running out of time, I didn't want to try and tune an EFI, and then sometimes snipers are can be a little bit problematic. I've heard of people having issues with fuel pumps going out and the sniper ECUs going out and this and that and the other thing, and EFI is basically pretty finicky. And with an unproven car, I just wanted something stone simple, carbureted, very as simple as they get. And this thing, I parked next to a sports satellite that had a Hellcat conversion, and I would compare it to, you got one car that's got the technology of a space shuttle, and then this thing is basically like the technology of a bicycle. So very simple to work on. You have a pretty good opportunity if you are down. You can make something work. You can get something universal. You can get something to work and get you back on the road. So we did have a couple hour breakdown on the south side of Columbus, which was pretty interesting. We had to fire up the car, get it up to speed, just let the thing coast, and we were just turning it on and off until we could get it off the expressway. And another thing, another tip would be, don't trust other people to look out for your safety. So trying to push this thing across traffic, you would think people would stop. They do not stop. They do not care. They will run you over. So we got this thing into the back of a Wendy's, and I walked down a couple blocks, got some parts, and you meet interesting people. Not only in Dragweek, but you meet interesting people. You got cars like this. Be ready for people to come out of the woodwork, and literally homeless people and homeless encampments in bushes, jumping out of bushes and being like, "Hey, that's a cool car." So be ready for that kind of stuff. So we did have an overcharging problem with this car. We got the belt fixed. we had an overcharging problem with this car. The alternator kept on wanting to charge a car at like 17 to 18 volts. So we found we had a little digital voltmeter, and we found that if we could turn stuff on, that we could drag the voltage down to a more reasonable level. Because we were at like 15.3, and at one point we kind of thought somebody was like, man, we're smelling somebody was frying up some chicken or something. And then we pulled over to get some gas, and it was the battery was boiling over. So we were turning on and adding electronics as we could to bring the voltage down. Well, how it was happening with your, what we found out later on the next day when in the daylight hours, we weren't actually like loading the alternator to the point where it was reducing the voltage. Basically, we had a alternator that was grounded out, so it was trying to make full voltage and it was ignoring the voltage regulator, and we weren't actually like dragging it down, like pulling amperage off of the max capacity. What we were doing is basically loading the alternator and loading the whole electrical system, that it was making the belt slip. So we had a belt that actually wore a groove, wore a groove that's shaped like the pulleys into the belt, and the whole front of the motor looked like somebody did a burnout, and all the rubber went onto the front of the motor. So on one of the checkpoints, luckily was for Lane Automotive, I was able to get a one-wire alternator at Lane Automotive, and that got the voltage thing under control. So, when you have stuff like that going on, man, there's a ton of anxiety, because, one, you don't want to be stuck on the side of the road, and two, you're on a time crunch. You need to get this thing fixed, you need to get back on the road, and you need to get on the road, especially if you have reservations at hotels. So really just like those two things for us, luckily, was that was the only big worry on the car. Initially, when we did get there, the rear end was making some noise, and we were trying to troubleshoot what it exactly was. Basically, like, what it boiled down to is when I put the 355 gear set in this car, the ring gear did have a little bit of rust. So another tip, if you're ever looking at gear sets and there's just a little bit of rust or any kind of surface imperfection on the gear set, be prepared for that thing to make a ridiculous amount of noise. We pulled over multiple times with this car to check pinion bearings. We even went to a auto parts store and bought a full set of pinion bearings and races and seals in case we had to do a roadside re-bearing of the carrier. And we got under there and checked the backlash and checked to make sure that the pinion was smooth. And basically what it amounted to was, it was just gear whine, gear noise. So, for how whiny it is, you would never expect this car to make it 850 miles. Like, it being used to modern cars that are basically dead silent, and then go into this thing, it's like, even any of my other muscle cars, but, a little bit of gear whine, I wouldn't say a little bit, but a considerable amount of gear whine, we're able to make it the entire loop. Things that I would probably change on the car. One, be a little bit more prepared, or start a little sooner. You don't want to be the guy that oil down the track, because it keeps everybody long. Everybody's goal is get on the drag strip, make your one pass, get out of there, and get moving. Because you don't want to be stuck on the side of the road at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night when part stores aren't available or other help is not available. So don't be that guy. Make sure you fix all your leaks. Every time I got to a track, I did a full clean down of this car and the K-member, any kind of cavity that could hold any of the oil, because it does have like a little bit, it developed some
some of a leak in the harmonic balancer seal. So I was doing like a full cleanup so that way I wasn't getting any oil on the track. Um, Other than that, car was rock solid. So um, drove good, rode good. The Calvert suspension does make some noise. So in the morning it was a little bit more squeaky, and then as you know the car in its entirety got some heat into it, you know that kind of went away. Airflow, man, that having that bench seat in there was super nice. You know, it saved our backs and saved our butts. You know, literally, uh, we could ride all day, and that seat was super comfortable. But it was also super hot. So you know, it's like 80. It was 85-degree temps the whole day, the whole drive. So you know, luckily this thing has the fly windows, so we were able to get some air. So make sure you have, you know, you can get some airflow to you. You don't want to have a freaking heat stroke trying to drive one of these things down the road. You know, I guess the biggest thing is is know your car. So there was considerable amount of unknowns with this car going in there. So I had to try and do a big picture prep for stuff I could take. But in the end, it all worked out. You know, I made sure I had a pretty universal set of tools. I had universal stuff like tape and silicone and you know general tools. You know, just super general stuff, and it all worked out. One of the tips that a fellow Dragweeker that he does when he builds or works on his car up until the point that he leaves, he has a toolbox that he basically works out of, and so anything he does when he works on that car, that tool goes in that toolbox. So it goes with him. So you know, and I appreciated that advice because I did the same thing. I had a table that I set out when I started working on this car, and any tool that was on that table went with me in the bag to go on Dragweek. So that worked out good. So good stuff there. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing is if you're waiting for something to be 100%, and yeah, you'll never get it done, and you'll have so much anxiety over everything. It's one of those things you kind of got to get out there and do it, or at least you know to prep for it. Go on a long drive. Go on like a weekend drive and drive this thing, because what it definitely does is it makes you sort out your car. Like when we were driving the car, we were fixing little things along the way, so it makes your car, you know, an event like this is awesome because it forces you to work on your car to the point where it is dependable and is drivable. But I think that's pretty much it for my wrap up on my experience with Dragweek with this car. Something, you know, a car that was unproven, and we thrashed on to the very end, right until the point where this car had 0 miles on it to prove it out. Basically fired it up, drove it out of the shop, and drove it onto a car trailer to bring it down to Hebron, Ohio, 6 hours away, and compete in Dragweek. So, very awesome time, very awesome people. You'll never meet better people in your life, especially if you're into cars. It's just like, it's like a big family reunion. So I was super happy that I did it. You know, to do it as a spectator is one thing. You still get to meet awesome people and get to talk to them, but you know, to be part of the team or part of the family that actually goes and drives on it. It's another thing you get to really live it. So it's a cool experience. So if you have the financial ability, and it really doesn't matter. Don't wait until you have your dream car. Like you don't have to have your dream car. You don't even have to have a muscle car. Like there's literally guys in Suburbans and Toyotas and stuff that are just getting out there and doing it. get out there, work on your junk, sign up for Dragweek next year, or one of these drag and drive events, and just do it. So everybody that did it, cheers, and everybody that made it and didn't make it, man, everybody looked like they had a really good time. So maybe we'll do it again next year.